Hi, 8th graders. This is Mrs. Thompson again, and we are working so steadfastly in section 6.1. We're learning about exponents and how to maneuver around zero exponents and negative exponents. And we are now on our very last example, example 4 in section 6.1. And my question for you is, what if you have a negative exponent in the denominator? If you watched my very first video lesson for 6.1, example 1, then you will know that I kind of tipped my cards then. And I want you to hear this over and over and over again. Anytime you have a negative exponent, locate its position in a fraction. If it's in the denominator, kick it up top. And so you'll end up with x to the positive 8. And when you vacated the denominator, it's not that there's 0 left there. You would just say that's a 1 that's there. If you vacate the denominator, it just means there's a 1 there, okay? Same thing with the numerator. If you vacate the numerator, all the numbers are going out the numerator. There's still an understood 1 there, and that's what you should write. Versus not writing anything or writing the number 0. Don't write that. Write 1 if there's nothing left in that space, okay? And you'll end up with x to the 8 power, okay? Because anything over 1 is itself. So we'll just leave it as x to the 8. So if a negative exponent's in the denominator, move it up to the numerator. If it's negative in the numerator, move it down to the denominator. And that's what I tried to show you in example 1. So now in example 4, we're just going to maneuver these negative exponents. We are not evaluating, we're not plugging in numbers for any of our variables. We're just practicing moving them, identifying which ones need to be moved and which ones do not. And that's going to be part of our simplification process. All right, so let's look at letter A. We've got 3 times y raised to the negative 2 power. Now, just like I showed you in example 3, letter D, there's a coefficient there of 3, and it has its own exponent on it, okay? This is really 3 to the first power times y to the negative 2, okay? That's how I want you to see it in your head. It's really 3 to the first power. It's not both the 3 and the y being raised to negative 2. That's not what's going on here. It's just 3 being raised to the first power times y being raised to the negative 2 power. So the only thing that needs to move is that y to the negative 2. And so when it's all said and done, all that remains in the numerator is that 3 to the first power, and then you're going to bump that y to the negative 2 down bottom, and here you go. Your simplified answer is 3 over y to the 2. Okay? Let's look at B. Notice that this time our exponent is negative in the denominator. Okay? Well, we want to move any negative exponents so that they become positive. So remember what I just told you up top. If it's negative exponent in the denominator, you're going to move it up top to the numerator. Well, there's somebody already there in the numerator, so you're just going to leave that number there. Don't move the negative 4. It has a positive 1 exponent. Don't move it. Just because the number itself is negative, that's not the reason we move numbers around. We move numbers around if their exponents are negative, not if the number itself is negative. So I'm going to pop that k to the negative 4 up top, and it's going to become k to the positive 4. And so my simplified answer is negative 4 times k to the positive 4. All right, let's look at letter C. We've got a couple of things we need to simplify. Did you notice here you've got a to the 0 power? All right, class, I know you know this. Anything raised to the 0 power is, you're right, 1. So I'm just going to ignore that. I'm going to mark it out. Anything times 1 is itself, anything divided by 1 is itself. So you can ignore it. Okay? So really now all we have is this situation. X to the negative 3 divided by y to the 5th. Okay? Well, y to the 5th already has that positive exponent. we don't need to move it. You don't need to touch it. Don't do anything to y to the 5th. It's already got that positive 5 exponent. The only thing you need to move is that x to the negative 3. Now that has that negative exponent. So we're going to kick it down into the cellar with that y to the 5. And so remember I told you, if nothing is left up top, if you don't see any other coefficients or variables left up top, then just it's an understood 1. So we'll put a 1 there. And then I like to write mine alphabetically. So we'll put x to the 3 times y to the 5th. That's pretty normal standard fare in our book, is for our answers to be shown alphabetically. So it doesn't technically matter if you write y to the 5th times x to the 3rd, but just for a standardized process, just understand that your book answers are going to be shown alphabetically, okay? All right, let's look at letter D. I'm going to kind of spread this out a little bit. This says 2 times r to the 0 times n to the negative 3, okay? Well, I hope right away you can see what you can do with that r to the 0, because let's review the rule. I'm going to beat this dead horse again. Anything to the 0 power is, you're right, 1, okay? Now you've got 2 times 1, which is 2, times n to the negative 3. So the only thing being raised to the negative 3 power is the m. It's negative in the numerator. It's not in the denominator. We don't see a fraction bar. So it's negative in the numerator. So all we're going to do is we're going to pop him down bottom. We're going to leave the 2 up top because it already has a positive 1 exponent on it. And we're going to move n to the 3rd down bottom. And there's your simplified answer. It's going to be 2 divided by n to the 3rd. Okay? How you doing so far? Am I going too fast? Let me kind of take a breather and get you a chance to catch up for a second if you're a little bit behind. All right, let's look at letter E. Letter E is really, I hope, very easy to see. It's r to the negative 3 divided by 7. Now 7 has an understood 1 exponent on it. Don't move the 7. Don't even think about moving the 7. It already has a positive exponent. There's no reason to move it. The only thing you need to move is that r to the negative 3. And we need to pop it down into the cellar with 7 to the first power 7. Okay? Now when you remove everything from the top, then you have to understand there's an understood 1 that's left. So that's going to become a 1. And then we're going to write our coefficient first, then times our variable. Now that's pretty normal in algebra and in pre-algebra, is when you have a number times a variable, the number is always written first. Is it wrong to write r to the 3rd times 7? No, it's just that's not how we normally write it. That's just a little unusual. In our answers, you're going to see it more typically written this way, okay? Coefficient, then variable. All right? Last but not least, let's look at F. We have g to the 4 divided by h to the negative 6. Okay. G to the 4, don't touch it. It is perfect the way it is. It already has that positive exponent we seek, so leave it alone. What you need to do is hyper-focus in on that h to the negative 6. We want to make that negative exponent a positive exponent, so we're going to pop it up top. And that's going to leave us with g to the 4 times h to the positive 6. And then we're done. Okay? So hopefully that made some sense. I'm going to do one little extension up here in this top area because I want to make sure I teach this concept, because sometimes you may be given a fraction raised to a negative exponent. That is possible too. The fraction, the whole thing's in parentheses, so we're taking the number 1/2 and we're raising it to the negative 2. Here's your shortcut. Just flip the fraction over and the exponent becomes positive. That is really as simple as I can make it for you. Flip the fraction over, exponent becomes positive. and then we have 2 to the second power, which is exactly 4. Okay? So hopefully that made some sense, especially the extension. I wanted to show you that. That's a little shortcut that I wanted to take the time and delve into that just a little bit, and kind of, you might see that in some of your classwork and homework, and I didn't want you to be caught off guard and surprised by that at all. That's the strategy you would use. Okay, as always, thank you for listening. It is a pleasure to teach you.